The world does not need to be punished for climate change. We just need to fix it.
What do you get when you cross a looming election, an impending climate crisis and a former ad man? Some bloody catchy catch cries, that's what.
Recovery, renewal. It's not a one-way street. Choices, evolution, not revolution. We have to go forward.
Be positive, get excited.
Technology, not taxes.
Be optimistic.
Oh, yeah.
Deregulate.
Can do capitalism, not don't do governments.
The common theme, staying relatively hands-off.
And I think Australians, after almost 2 years of governments telling them what to do through this pandemic, they've had just about enough of that approach.
Finding solutions to problems is one of the aspects that business is very, very good at. And as the young kids come through, they're better at it than governments. Yeah.
The PM backing business, specifically low emissions technology business, to get the job done.
And to that end, the government will establish a $1 billion low emissions technology commercialisation fund within the Clean Energy Finance Corporation.
Half the cash will come from the government, the rest from investors, funding new tech and some controversial old tech like carbon capture.
Carbon capture and storage has been around for over 20 years now. One of the biggest ones is the Gorgon project in West Australia, and it's proven a failure there. It doesn't even approach capturing half of the CO2 emissions, and they're also hideously expensive.
Climate experts say it's a risky investment.
This is just a big taxpayer's subsidy for technology that doesn't work and simply prolongs high-emitting fossil fuels.
But the PM's determined to do things his way.
My time in Glasgow affirmed my belief that Australia can and must chart its own unique path.
A path which today saw Australia tank in the annual Climate Change Performance Index, ranked 58 of 64 nations overall and dead last on the leaderboard for climate policy.
Man up.
It's quite an embarrassing position, but unfortunately from our federal government, it is a well-earned position.
So is Australia's
own unique path
the right one?
Deregulate.
Richie Merzioni is the Climate and Energy Program Director at the Australia Institute and is currently in Glasgow for COP26. Richie, given the world has really big emitters like China, India, Russia, and some of these countries didn't even bother sending their leaders to COP26, how is it that we keep getting reports where we manage to win the climate policy wooden spoon?
Yeah, while China and Russia's leaders were no-shows, Australia rocked up but had nothing to really bring to the table. Australia's a wealthy country, it's industrialised, and it came here bragging that it'll meet and beat its target, but didn't want to commit to do more. That's the problem. Australia should be joining the UK and the US and other industrialised, wealthy Western countries, but it refuses to, and it runs cover for these other laggards as well. So instead of joining its forever friends, it's actually dragging things down. And that's the real problem. That's why Australia could be doing more, should be doing more, but is refusing to. And that absence of climate policy is why it ranks last.
Well, the PM is stepping up somewhat on the climate front. There was the electric car announcement yesterday, the $1 billion climate tech fund today. Will any of that make a difference?
It's actually quite curious that $1 billion tech fund is really $500 million, and it's loans that go to the Clean Energy Finance Corporation only if it's willing to fund fossil fuel technologies like carbon capture and storage, which has been a colossal failure. Over $4 billion committed, not a single clean coal project to show for it. Why did the PM wait till he was at home to announce this rather than do it here? Because he wouldn't get any credit for it here. This COP has actually been about phasing out fossil fuels. The UK wants to consign coal to history. And really, that's what Australia should be looking to do. Join up with the partnerships to phase out the key source of greenhouse gas emissions, not just bring in more technologies to back in more fossil fuels.
Well, the PM says Australia needs to take a unique path, though, that we're different to European countries, we rely on different industries, we're more spread out. Does he have a point there?
Look, it's kind of like your mate who never brings their wallet to the pub. You know, you can forgive them the first time and maybe even the second time, but eventually there's a pattern here. Australia keeps complaining about having special circumstances when really all its friends, all its similar countries like Canada, they're all stepping up. Look, Australia could be doing more. In fact, the PM says we're going to beat our target, but we won't commit to it. So you can't bank on Australia. You can't rely on Australia, because ultimately everyone needs to commit to doing more this decade, what President Biden calls the decisive decade. You know, like being an Australian here, it's just disappointing. Like President Obama was here, like the whole US Congress feels like that they're here because the US is putting everything it has on the line. The UK is putting everything it has on the line to make this a success. And it seems like Australia is only trying to get away with doing as little as possible. And that's the problem.
Richie, thank you very much for speaking to us tonight.
My pleasure.
So you're saying something like, you know what, I reckon people have had quite about enough of governments telling them what to do at this time is a really convenient way to say I can't be bothered doing anything.
They're not good at the solutions, though, Rach.
No,
Yeah,
but I
true.
reckon I got a feeling it might work for him politically.
Really?
Yeah, because...
How?
Well, I think that statement, I think you're right to point out the sort of irony in it, the problems in it, but I think that statement is true. People are sick of being told what to do by governments. I don't think they're being sick of told what to do by governments on climate, but that idea is there. And I reckon for him to say, well, business is better at solving this than government, therefore I don't need to do anything, and it's the Australian way, and, we'll do what suits us. I reckon there's just enough people who would say, yeah, I'm optimistic about Australia, I believe in our entrepreneurs, and just kind of rely on it. I don't think it would work as a climate policy, but could you imagine someone jumping on board that?
He's very good at spruiking.
Yeah.
He's very good at spruiking to the point where he's started to sound not like a PM anymore. This is him spruiking his climate policies, and he's sounding more like a fruiterer at the local market.
Ultra low cost solar under $15 per megawatt hour, under $700 per tonne for steel. Carbon capture and storage under $20 per tonne. Clean hydrogen under $2 a kilo.
Dollar bag, dollar bag, dollar bag.
I reckon the words associated with climate change are part of the problem.
Yeah.
It's actually hard to wrap your head around it. So you're trying to understand something that you can't understand.
So it just washes over you, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.